let's get started here. So, first highlight. Well, comes in, fake. Okay, cool. So, this this is gonna be a little bit more in tight shooting, I guess, or just understanding how these guys utilize their hands so well. So, this clip I could only really grab right on a flip here. So, obviously we kind of missed the face dodge here, but what I care about is after he exits these two players. All right, he gets alone in front of the net, and basically pulling fakes and understanding how to pull fakes is so important. And the reason why box players tend to really dominate the game when it comes to inside shooting and outside shooting, to be frank, is because the efficiency at which they move their hands. All right, they're not born with any special talent. There's a reason why the best finishers really come from either one of the reservations or north of the border up in Canada. They're not born with this skill. This is something they learn. And in the box game, you have to be super efficient. So when he comes in here to fake, first thing is that hands are always independent of the body. You'll notice that he does not move his shoulders that much. If you pay attention, back is straight, eyes are looking forward all day. All right, he's super efficient. Hands are always up in a ready position. Is he at 90 at the elbow joint? Maybe, but he's definitely not at 90 at the armpit. And a rule I like to preach to people is, or a good principle to live off is, learn the rules like a professional so you can break them like an artist. An old Picasso quote, right? It's so true, because this guy can bring his hands in tight, so to speak, even though they're not really in tight here. They're still actually away from his body, but at the exact same time, move them independent of his body. Therefore, move his hands in a way that does not adjust his body position. All right, hands come back with this, right? That's a fake right there. Just bringing it back is a fake. Watch, right here, watch the goalie. He brings it back, steps, and goalie is already moving to the left. Shooter's left, goalie's right. This is massive. This is just a small hitch. And what we often see in the outdoor game is players throwing, instead of using this as a fake, they are bringing their stick forward and faking, which can be effective. I'm not saying it can't be effective, but if you're looking for pure efficiency, I think this is the guy, and this is one of the great ways to do it. Comes across his body after he gets the goalie to move, and then what happens after that is almost irrelevant. It doesn't matter how he shoots the ball. Just a little shovel shot or backhanded shot right there. Super simple, okay? But this is because he's shaving moves off. Mark Twain said, "I'd write a shorter letter, but I didn't have time." That means it takes a lot of work to learn how to be efficient and move without excess movement. And this guy's a master at it. All right, so let's watch this one in full speed. Comes in, bang, one-handed shot. Boom. This is why learning the basics, again, I'm going to say it with every guy, because when you look at these players, even outdoor or indoor, especially when you're talking about shooting, really for any skill set, the guys who are good are the guys who move minimally. That's not saying they're not putting in effort. It's actually the opposite is true. They're putting in more effort because they're playing with their mind as well as their body, and they understand angles. All right. When Matthews comes in here, right, very little cradle, and because his top hand is the boss in this situation, people talk about when you're shooting. Let's say he has two hands on that shot. People love to emphasize the pull action with the push and pull. But the pull action in a push and pull, you only want enough pull to assist the top hand. You don't want it to dominate the shot. Because when you start dominating a shot with the bottom hand, then it starts to get out of control. You don't have as much control over your stick. It's harder to choose to go right-handed or overhand or three-quarter or sidearm or whatever the case may be. You end up kind of being a slave to that bottom hand. And here, I think he shows that with that top hand, that's his strong hand. He doesn't even need his bottom hand, right? Obviously, he's got a guy tying his left arm up. I'm not oblivious to that. But the point I'm trying to make is your top hand really runs the show when it comes to shooting and throwing. And people tend to get away with that when shooting two-handed from the outside especially. They tend to really focus on the bottom hand, which is an asset. But I view it as an assistant, not the boss, right? It assists the boss in the task. The top hand is the boss, the bottom hand is the assistant, all right? So here Matthews demonstrates that having a top hand that dominates is important. Step in, pretty simple, like always. I mean, let's talk about this. Feet are right under hips. You don't need a wide base to shoot effectively. He's just standing up like a person. That feet may be a little wider than that, but he's standing up pretty normally. And that's important because a lot of people talk about starting with this wide base, feet out here. I wish these lines were a little thinner, but they're not, so I'm going to deal with it. All right, people talk about this wide base, this quote athletic stance. Well, that adds movement. And not only adds movement, if your stance is too wide, you're going to hit the brakes when you go to step. Because as we always say, never forget this, we humans are cross crawlers. Right leg stimulates left arm. And when that right leg moves forward from mark here, that left arm is going to want to move. That's a neurological pattern. That is not a choice. It's how we move naturally. So, in order to continue forward on this shot, he wants to take a step that's shorter than a big step, right? He wants to take a step that allows him to get over his front foot and pull forward. Everything's square here. Everything's square. Hands are out. He's not shooting the ball a million miles an hour. He's got good hands. They're in a little tight, but this is a touch shot. He knows exactly what he's doing here as he's driving forward. This next angle I think is pretty cool. It's straight over the top. I like how the NLL can do. Let me zoom out a little bit. You'll see they kind of clip. This clip was a little funky, so it jumps here. But you can see he's starting out looking sidearm, and then he brings it back in. He's showing a goalie at this point, perhaps a sidearm shot, and then he adjusts and brings it straight over the top. I mean, when you look at that stick, that's on the y-axis. That is straight up and down. That stick is moving on a straight line. Well, that's not the straightest line in the world, but I think you get the picture. It's going on a straight line all the way down towards the goal. And that's how you need to be thinking. I'm not saying you need to only shoot overhand, but what I'm suggesting is when the hands are away from the body, it allows you to go from sidearm to overhand very easily and without having to adjust your shoulders. And when you don't adjust your shoulders, you're not showing the goalie where you're shooting. Because in box lacrosse, it's all about moving the goalie in order to find opening. I love this shot. So subtle you can barely even tell. Drives in, that's not what I care about. He throws a fake here. Watch, as he brings his stick up, the goalie will come into the picture. You can see the goalie dropping. He's dropping. Now, I like to believe that the reason why he's dropping is because all Matthews did coming forward here, when he brought that stick back, just a little, maybe, God, it's even so hard to tell, but he's showing down, right? He's suggesting low. And I think that's with his eyes and his head. Something John Grant Jr. made a living out of, all right? Get the goalie to drop, snap that ball up high. Boom. Even a little bit to the right, too. As he brings that stick back, it looks like he's to the left. It looks like he's suggesting with his stick that he might be going left side. You can make that determination, but it looks like it to me. Brings that stick back. That's his fake. Just bringing it back is his fake. Showing left, pulling it right. I mean, how many times have you guys seen this guy spin his stick? Not once. Steps in, drives forward. Again, hands are away from the body. They're not far away, right? They start out, and then he comes in to snap it, right? To maybe throw a little bit of a 3/4. But the point of this shot is, let me go back to the first angle too. Drives forward. Now, you'll notice here, and this is one thing I don't like. A lot of people tend to do it, but I think when you have a guy as skilled as Matthews, I think when you see that stick pull up at the end here, on this backswing, you'll see the stick come up. That's him hitting the brakes with the hand and pulling up. Now, that might be intentional in this case, because I like to call them touch shots, right? Where you're, maybe a touch shot is the wrong terminology, but where you're putting feel into your shot. You're like, okay, I'm not gonna rip this as hard as I can, but I'm just gonna kind of like guide it. In order to guide it, I need to stop the motion of my stick a little bit. So maybe he's suggesting right, and he's pulling up with that stick. Pretty effective. Here's the last. Bang. Now, obviously, it's a great shot. Whoops. Let me pull forward here throughout this whole thing. But what I like about this is, let me get there. What I like about this is the move prior. This is not a fast guy who completely jukes somebody, all because of what he's suggesting, and he's utilizing the element of surprise. There's not a big hitch. Look at this. It's not like when he goes to fake this shot, he's slamming on the brakes, dropping real low, throwing a big fake with his stick. That's not what's occurring. He comes up and just bang. I mean, he barely even fakes. He's only suggesting with a prep that he might shoot. Right? Comes up, standing up tall, barely even fakes, and that's what allows him to get around this guy so efficiently. Remember, even though this is not, he's not necessarily a dodger, what makes him so effective is his ability to be deceptive. His ability to suggest that he's going to do one thing and then he does another, which allows him to free his hands and move around this defenseman. All right? The minimum effective dose. I mean, I feel like a broken record. I say it with every guy who I think is really good. All right? Most field players who have this skill play in the box league. Right? You see, it's interesting because you see a lot of guys who play box lacrosse succeed in the field game. But you don't see as many field players who are really good at field lacrosse succeed in the box game. There's a handful, but there's not nearly as many. And the reason I think that's probably the case is because in box lacrosse, in order to succeed, you need to be a lot more efficient with your moves, and you need to focus on that minimum effective dose. So, takeaways from Mark Matthews today, guys. I really think work on minimal movement. Don't spin your stick when you're practicing. Focus on deception, right? You don't need to be fast to be effective, all right? And, really work on that stick when it comes to only what matters. This is a guy who only makes moves that matter. And when you make moves that matter, you become very efficient. with your training. You become very efficient with your play. So I hope this helps. I think this guy's phenomenal. I think he's clearly one of the best players in the game. So I hope this helps. Take this video, rewatch it, focus on how this guy moves, and